thoughts on the game? Does this mean the league's over then? Because I don't know who on this planet can stop Arsenal at the rate they're going.
Yeah, it's a good question, Alexis, for sure. And today was another test, simply because it was the derby. Not that I think many of us thought that this current Tottenham team could cause too much problem to Arsenal, but you just never know. It's the rivalry, it's the derby, etc., etc. But today was not the day where Arsenal would be rattled, really, or put under pressure, or have a few doubts. It might be next Sunday away at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea, who were 3 points behind just before this game kicked off today. So had Arsenal lost against Spurs, it would have been just 3 points between Chelsea and Arsenal, and they would have faced next week in southwest London. But it's 6 points, and I think if Arsenal don't lose against Chelsea, they would have played all the most direct opponents, really, when you think about it. And if they're still that clear, it's true that it's theirs to lose more than anything else, which we've said really pretty much since the start of the season.
It's just interesting because, as Jules pointed out, this was a derby. This was the North London derby. And I mean, Ale, I think we were talking about it just off camera, that urgency from Spurs just never came. Did you notice that, or is it just that Arsenal were that good?
I'm going to focus on Arsenal for right now. And I'm sure we'll speak about Spurs at some point. But their performance is not worthy of actually talking about Spurs. What I would say about Arsenal is that they're checking every box that you can potentially put in your mind about what a championship-winning team looks like. Today, that was supposed to be about the emotion of the derby, that throw the records away. You never know what's going to happen. 5 minutes in, you knew what was going to happen in this match. It wasn't competitive. Arsenal-Spurs wasn't competitive. Arsenal were all over Spurs, and from the very beginning, when Eze just kind of clips the ball over the top to Declan Rice, and Vicario has to come over with a save, you're kind of going, uh-oh, uh-oh.
Long night.
Uh-oh, it's only a matter of time until this gets out of hand. Arsenal pressing the ball higher up the field, forcing turnovers. Spurs never getting close enough to Arsenal to actually impact their game or to force them to play the ball backwards or sideways. The manner in which Arsenal approached this game, it just seemed inevitable that at some point they were going to score, and 1 was going to become 2 and 2 was going to become 3. And while it seemed inevitable to me watching it from afar, it also felt like it was inevitable for Spurs. They almost sensed as if like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think we got a chance because we can't complete 3 passes and we are not finding any sort of outlet, or we're not finding any way to release some pressure, and that's credit to Arsenal. Overall, the thing that I think makes it the more impressive for Arsenal is that this was not a competitive game. It was not. There was 5 or 10 minutes following the Richarlison goal that you may think, Arsenal were a little uncomfortable. And that was it. There was nothing, again, competitive in what's supposed to be a derby match. It wasn't. It was all Arsenal all the time.
Stevie, when you see Spurs playing like they did and faltering big time in a derby, when you see the problems that we know Liverpool are having, when you see Manchester City, of course, still winning, having an Erling Haaland doing well, but again, faltering to Newcastle, what team can really take down Arsenal at this point?
Arsenal. Arsenal's the only side that can trip themselves up. You know, yes, they beat a lacklustre Spurs side, but the way they played the game, the composure, particularly in a North London derby, the way they went about it from the start to the finish, this is impressive. And the one thing they've done this weekend, if anybody had any doubts that Sunderland wasn't just a hiccup, then this weekend Arsenal have completely and utterly separated themselves from everybody else in the Premier League. Everybody else. We can talk about any team you like and we will find holes in it. You can't find holes in this Arsenal side. You can't. We could sit here all day and not one of us would come up with a genuine reason why Arsenal will fail. That's how good this team is and how much they've separated themselves from every other side in the Premier League.
Jules, just hearing Stevie talk about that, the fact that we all could sit here and pick apart this Arsenal squad and not really find any holes or almost any flaws in it. What are their ambitions now? Are we talking a treble? Are we talking a quadruple maybe?
Oh, God damn.
No, I don't think they're even thinking about that. Yeah, I think they'd be happy with the league to start with, just to that. They've been waiting for long enough. It will be 22 years if they do win it at the end of this season since the last one. I think that's all they think about. But we talked a lot about Gabriel being missing for this game and out for at least 4 weeks probably. And who would replace him? Would it be Calafiori or Mosquera or Hincapié? And where? And okay, this is an easy game for Hincapié because Stevie could have played next to Saliba in that defense, and Stevie would have played in his sofa like Hincapié did. So the Bayern game would be a much bigger test for Hincapié, like the Chelsea game away next weekend. But even when they don't have Gyökeres, or they don't have Odegaard, or they don't have Gabriel, even on the back of an international break where everybody went away and just came back, they're still producing something like that. I mean, I know Spurs were embarrassingly bad, and Thomas Frank especially, because this tactics just was completely useless and completely clueless from him. But that's one for later. But Paul Vale, by the way, had a higher expected goals against Arsenal than Spurs had. Leeds had a higher expected goals than Spurs had today. This is how bad it was. But for Arsenal, to just have players coming in like Hincapié who hardly played today and feel really at ease in the structure, Eze in that role. I mean, Declan Rice today was again outstanding. It's just, even when they have injuries, which was the thing that let them down in the last 3 seasons, now because of the depth in the squad that they've had, which we highlighted earlier in the season on the show, it's a very different team and a very different dynamic from them.
Well, the only thing that's fancier today than Jules' background was just the performance from Eberechi Eze. Jules, that hat-trick, you just felt like it was eventually going to come. It was written in the stars, considering his story and his ties to Arsenal. But he's just bringing that X factor that some felt Arsenal still needed, especially in attack.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, he was in the right place at the right time. His quality on the ball is exceptional. He was helped massively, and so was the team by, again, how bad Spurs were. How can you leave Eze with so much space on the edge of your own box when you play with a back 5 and 2 defensive midfielders? That's 7 players, plus your goalkeeper. And yet Eze has all that space. Moreno has all that space to pick a pass, to pick a shot, to just do what you want, really, on the pitch. But Eze was outstanding. And you're right, Alexis. It was always written that he would be shining. For all the debate, all the narrative before this game of he almost signed for Spurs, but for him, the Arsenal fan, to have gone to Arsenal, the dream move, and now in his first North London derby with the rivalry, with the whole family in the stands, and yeah, he's the big star and scored those 3 goals in that central position. I don't know what's happening when Odegaard comes back, and he's not far from coming back. Do you move Eze back out wide on the left again? But Trossard has been great, so there's a lot of question mark that then Arteta would have to respond. But when you've got Eze in that kind of form, even at the last third end of the pitch, it's just a luxury, really.
This is when we need Jan Fjordtoft.
Why is that?
Why?
Oh.
Well, how do you move a guy who's just got a hat trick?
You don't.
You don't.
Well, you don't.
Well, you don't.
Full stop.
I'm watching the game, and the camera's panning towards the sidelines, and I'm looking at Odegaard, and I'm thinking, he's sitting there going,
Uh-oh.
oh.
Uh-oh.
You know what the telltale sign was? That Eze scores the second goal. Gabriel goes crazy with Odegaard right next to him.
Yeah.
And Odegaard is like, all right, goal.
Okay.
That's not good for me.
All right. Hey. Good goal there, Eze. All right.
And you can't. But I honestly think we should forget about Spurs today. Because I honestly believe this performance, it wouldn't have mattered that much who they were up against. And that's the position they're in now. It doesn't matter who they play, home or away. It's about what we do. That's what the best teams do. Let the opposition worry about us, because every single thing we do is going to be better than what anybody else has got to offer. And that's the biggest thing for me from this. I mean, to think that you would suggest that the league's over after, 12 games? But it's not a fact. It feels as though it's right. You know, I don't feel strange saying the league's over. The Premier League, we talk about the Bundesliga and Bayern and think, what can this is... But you know what? When a team's that good, who cares if it's over after 12? If you can't enjoy watching a team that plays the way Arsenal does, then you're watching the wrong sport.
If I can just go back to Eze for a second, and on the hat trick, they all came in the same central position that Jules is talking about. Now, that you may think, well, he's just very good at finding the open spaces, and then once he's in the open spaces, he was very good about finishing his chances. But it does take some mental discipline to not just roam around and understand, if this team is going to give me this space, then I'm going to hang out right here. I don't have to go over there. I don't have to go over here. No. This is where I got my space. They're apparently not aware that I'm about to score here again and again and again. And he had another chance to score a fourth goal from the same position. Now, we're sort of on the fringes of talking about Spurs, but I'm with you, Stevie. It is about Arsenal. It is about Eze. It is about the individual players of Arsenal, but then the team structure of Arsenal and how good they are. The reason that you can have players come in and out, this guy's injured, that guy's injured, this guy's injured, and they're still able to produce results like this and performances like this is because there is depth within the squad, which is always important, but there's also knowledge and understanding what your role is within the structure of a group. It is clear to see that Arsenal are right here and then it's everybody else. If you didn't think that coming into this weekend, maybe Don thought that this was 50-50. Somehow he argued that it was a 50-50 between them and Manchester City, even though Arsenal were up 4 points coming into this weekend. I don't understand his math, but nobody else does either. You watch what this weekend was all about in the Premier League, and you can physically see the separation between Arsenal and everybody else.
You also need to talk about people like Trossard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every championship winning side, regardless of what country it is, has people like Trossard. A guy who doesn't get the headlines. If somebody's going to be left out, is it going to be him? I mean, he's constantly been mentioned in those terms. But this season in particular, he's the guy that's turning up and producing. You know, he's got a goal today. We're a bit lucky, but he's got a goal. He's got an assist as well. But he's a guy that we never talk about. So not only have they got superstars that are performing, but even the so-called fringe players, the so-called players that are under question, they're producing as well. I mean, it's a recipe for success.
Well, Jules, just talking about the other side of the coin now and focusing on Spurs and specifically Thomas Frank, it'll be interesting to know what the headlines in London are saying about him now, because we went from singing his praises at the beginning of the season to now looking at how Spurs have really faltered and looked very lackluster in some big games and big moments. So in terms of bigger pictures, are there any worries there?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I really think today was embarrassing. He embarrassed himself to start with, Thomas Frank, with what he tried to put in place, really, which, to be fair, being there was, when you got the team here, you understand the back five, Palhinha and Bentancur, that front three, which would do what they could, I guess, with the ball, with maybe one of the wing backs, depending on where the ball was, so they would attack with 4, defend with 11. He said that the plan was to press really high and to be aggressive and to go. To press high, you need Arsenal to actually have the ball in their own box or to have a goal kick, which was never the case. Spurs touched the ball twice in the Arsenal box in the first half. They had 14 passes in the Arsenal half, not in the last 30, in the Arsenal half, 14 passes in the whole of 48 minutes of the first half. That's one pass. I mean, it's embarrassing. It was an embarrassing performance from him and from the team. And he changed at half-time with Xavi Simons may as well not have been on the pitch, really, for the whole second half. So yes, they scored that goal that Arsenal gifted them in a way, because Zubimendi should never get hold of the ball for so long, should have let the ball go before that. But I thought Thomas Frank got everything wrong today, and it's not the first time. We talked about how bad they were against Chelsea at home and how no threat they offered. He's got no patterns of play going forward. Attacking-wise, there is nothing. And when his team doesn't defend well, which they did at the start of the season, but not so much anymore, then they have nothing going for them. And I know he needs energy from the fans, energy from the players. That's how his Brentford team was so good, right? Because they had all that energy, especially at home. It was a fortress. You don't get that same way in a big club. Players don't respond the same way. Fans don't respond the same way. They've got other expectations. They're very demanding, far more than at Brentford, for example. And right now, he can't get what he wants, and he can't get it right either. And today, you can understand maybe why you would want to go for a back five and be solid and compact. But you go with a back five again and those 2 6s in front of that, and you leave all that space for Moreno and Eze and Trossard and Saka. It was a walk in the park for Arsenal, and it shouldn't have never been. And for me, this is all on Thomas Frank.
Putting Arsenal's brilliance aside, though, do you think Thomas Frank, as Jules said, did himself no favours just starting with how he lined up his team?
Yeah, I think Jules hit the nail on the head, to be perfectly honest with you. You know, when we talk about patterns of play, you know, the patterns of play, the reason you use them is because when things are not going well, you can revert to them. Things that you train every day and work on every day, you know, ball's going wide. When it goes wide, it comes in. When it comes in, it's a quick flick. All of those things you work on for when things are not going well. You know, we'd all love to get a team and just throw them out on the field, and it's Brazil or the great Dutch teams or the great Real Madrid teams where they can just play, and you can. Every coach would love to be able to say, you know what, you go and show us what quality you've got. But not everybody can do that. And so, yes, you have to be organised, but you also have to have a structure going forward. And I have to agree with Jules. They, not only in this game, but recently, have looked as though they have no structure going forward whatsoever. We figured that he would get them organised after the last manager, which he did, which is the easy bit. You know, coaching, the easy bit is filling holes, keeping it tight. Where should you be? The toughest part of coaching is the other side of the game. How do you get everybody forward? How do we do it correctly? How do we do it quickly? And then how do we put the ball in the net? And today, he got both wrong. And that's worrying.
As a former player, but also I have to imagine if you're a fan of Spurs and you're watching this game and you're getting run over all over the field, and every time they pan to your manager, this guy is over here with the assistants. They're looking at the tablet, right? and they're discussing, and they're doing the thing and the tablet, and then they're pointing over there, and the tablet over here, and I'm like, throw the tablet away, dude. The answers are not there.
Yeah.
The game is right out there in front of you. In front of you. The answers are not there. If you're having to look at your tablet 10 times during the first half to try to break it down and figure out what's going on, then you have issues. The answers are not here. The answers are out there on the field, and you have to make those decisions on the run. And what I saw was a guy with a blank stare. And when you're a player and you see your manager who's diving into the tablet and has a blank stare when you look at him, guess what? If he's not sure,
You're not sure.
then you're not sure. At the very least, you got to fake until you make it. At the very least, you have to portray a sense of, I know what I'm doing, this is the game plan, and this is how we're going to execute it. But every time you look to the silence, he's over here on a tablet, you lost me.
There's not a player that ever played the game when the manager's on the touchline, shouting your name, looking at you, pointing the finger, telling you to buck your ideas up. There's not a player that wants that. And there's not a player, almost every single player reacts to that. As Ali said, they certainly don't react to some guy with his head stuck in a tablet, that's for sure.